All right. All right, we are live and ready at 5:59. All right. We got 11 people ready to go right at 6 o'clock. That's what I'm talking about. So I want us to go ahead and get started. First of all, for everyone who's tuned in, thank you for joining us. I am Chanel Smith, the founder and president of HBCU Walking Billboard, a nonprofit organization here in Kansas City whose sole purpose is to promote awareness of, attendance to, and graduation from historically Black colleges and universities. And today is the first of our We Ready College Gear Up series. So because our goal is to get students from Kansas City into historically Black colleges and universities, we wanted to provide a 4-week series that kind of highlights the action steps that students and families need to take in order for them to be best prepared for a more and most ideal college experience. And so for that purpose, we have a few community experts who are joining us today. First, we have Tierra Posey. She is the Director of Education at the Urban League of Greater Kansas City. Next, we have Dre Carnegie. He is the Student Success Coach at the Shawnee Mission School District. And then finally, we have Mr. Mike Graham, who is the founder and president of TPT Education Leaders. So we're going to go ahead and just kick things off. I would like to pose the first question, and that is, students have a tendency to want to take the easy route when completing high school, right? They're like, yo, once I get these prereqs and once I hit the 24 to 28 credits they say I need to graduate, I'm chilling. I'm taking gym 7 hours a day. First question
I did it.
Because I mean, I was a senior, so I did it.
I did it.
Why not? I want to ask Tierra, in your opinion and what you've found with helping students prepare for college, are there certain classes that maybe they should take that might help colleges consider their applications more?
Sure. Well, first, like you said, though, there are those, standard required classes, but it never hurts to go above and beyond the average. Like, who wants to be just average, right? So you want to make yourself stand out. Average students, they're doing well, but the student that took that extra class may get noticed a little bit more. So when we think like in terms of like math and things like that, most schools require like 3 years of math, but those competitive ones, they require more. The same with sciences. Taking an extra science always helps because a lot of science requires you to think analytically, and it shows that you are putting an effort into your education. Taking classes like some of the art classes, whether it be of drawing, or if you go into like the art of music and things like that, theater, it shows that you're a well-rounded student, and colleges want to know what you can bring to them in their school. So you want to show them who you are. So taking those kinds of classes, and then if you think you know what you want to major in when you go to college, because your mind probably will change once you get there. But if you think you know what you want to go into, if your high school offers courses that mirror some of those private classes, go ahead and take those. So like if you want to be an engineer and there are extra STEM classes that your school offers, then go ahead and take those. It doesn't hurt. And some of them may be like transferable or dual credit classes.
Thank you. Dre or Mike, you got anything to add to that? Like, are there classes that kids should be thinking about taking or adding to their schedules in order for colleges to consider them?
Yeah, I was going to say, I know a lot of districts have programs with study books, and that kind of lets kids know what classes depending on their grade level. And I do know if you're a student athlete as well, there's certain classes that you have to take as it relates to going on to be a student athlete. So I think the best thing as an educator, as a teacher or student or family, is really reaching out to your guidance counselors or your counselor at school so they can walk you or sit you down that and kind of walk you through that process.
A couple of things that we've really noticed is that, of course, the higher level math classes are always a plus, and will definitely be proactive in making sure you're prepped before you hit campus. But a strong writing class is almost mandatory. Strong writing class, and then I also strongly recommend, and the numbers kind of show this, some type of a stronger reading comprehension, maybe even a speed reading class. You'll find that to be very, very beneficial on campus, especially when you have to read this book and you really can't read every single page. So that's when your speed reading, chunking, and all that comes into place. So bottom line, two things we strongly recommend is a speed reading or a critical reading class, and definitely a writing class.
Thank you. And I think it's important that you added the writing component because a lot of, and we'll get into this in a little later session with the We Ready series, but a lot of students in my current school often ask me like, why we gotta do that? And why is this paper so long? And it's like, it's really not that long. Just want to throw that out there. But sharpening that writing skill really can make the difference between college acceptance early decision or college acceptance waitlisted. It could also be a difference maker in getting scholarship money or not getting scholarship money. And so really being able to toy with words effectively is like a huge collegiate skill, but it's also a life skill. And that's what I keep trying to tell my students is it's not just, when we talk about writing, it's not just for the sake of writing papers. It's for developing the skill to be able to articulate what you need when it's time for you to advocate for yourself. And then as you grow and change, maybe even advocate for your family. So it's like a life skill.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, everybody. All right. So, Dre, this is probably a question that we can toss your way, especially considering the fact that you, in addition to being a student success coach, you are also not originally from the United States, and you actually came here on an athletic scholarship. So the question is, what type of GPA ideally are colleges looking for?
You know, I tell the kids I work with, you know, your GPA, your grades as it relates to school is money. You know, but typically schools want at least a 2.0. You know, I coach several different sports, and I think, you know, as a coach, I want to be able to trust you in the classroom. That's what you're a student athlete, you know, so just be thinking about that. But yeah, 2.0 is usually what schools are looking for. I mean, I know also depending if you're a minority or whatnot, or the first to go to school in your family, those are also considered factors. But yeah, if you're a student athlete, I think definitely at least a 2.0 is something you should be striving through. And honestly, a 2.0, you know, if you're being honest, isn't the best, you know, but that's the starting point.
Thanks. Anybody got anything to add to that? We're looking at 2.0 as a starting point. Any additional?
Yeah, I'll chime into that. Just as far as kind of like Dre talked about being a student athlete, when you register with the NCAA, you know, they have their own set of requirements. And I believe like to play D1, it may be like a
2.5.
Yep. Yeah. So, you know, you have to, if that's something that you want to pursue in college, you want to make yourself cognizant of that and make sure that you're aiming higher than that. Because like he said, you know, that's where the money, your GPA, that's where, you know, the money comes from. So, yeah. And also look into it. GPAs can be program specific. So depending on what kind of program you want to go into, they may have like a 3.5, you know, requirement. So again, knowing sort of what field you want to go into, that's something that you need to take a look at.
I think it's so important, especially when you look at the NCAA clearinghouse and just a traditional student as well, the non-athlete, just a student, that the GPA, if you're looking at a 2.5, it's important that we realize that 2.5 is cumulative for your core classes only. That's not counting your electives and your GPA boosters. That's not counting that. That's strictly your core classes. And a lot of kids really hurt themselves at freshman, sophomore year, and then they wake up and then they're playing catch up, especially with those core classes. So that's a big issue. And I know with the NCAA clearinghouse, the higher your GPA is, the more leeway you have on the standardized test, ACT, SAT, the more leeway you have on that. So if you have a higher GPA, then your ACT score can actually be a little lower and you're still in good shape.
Right. Yeah, it's true. It's facts.
I want to just also throw out there, for those of you who have joined us live, you are more than welcome to add your own questions to the comments, and I will shoot them out to our panelists so that we can get some really personalized answers in case there's some things that you're looking for specifically. This next question is, should I take the ACT, SAT, or both? And this is a really critical question because here in Kansas City, since I've been in high school, the test that is normally pushed is the ACT. But students are wondering if there's value at all to the SAT. And if so, what is it? So, Mike, I'm actually going to have you take that question first.
Okay, that's a great question, Chanel. So the ACT, it all depends. What we like to tell students is create your list of maybe 10 colleges and then start narrowing that down. And one tool that you can use to start to really do a drill down is, what is that college looking for? Well, what's the most effective standardized test that they're looking for that's going to be beneficial to you? Typically, you hear a lot of people say, well, East Coast, schools out West, they tend to lean more towards the SAT. True. SAT tends to be more writing. True. ACT tends to be more commonly requested here in the Midwest. That's true. So at the end of the day, you really need to look at the schools on your list and see what's a priority to them. And that kind of give you an idea. I couldn't see a very focused senior in high school that has aspirations of more than one college on their list, not taking both. That way you have both, you have the whole gamut covered, but definitely do your research, see what your college of choice is requesting and go from there.
Yeah, that's good.
He said it all.
I was going to say, it looks like everyone agreed. The only thing that I would add to that is, when looking to take them both, be cognizant about your ability to get to the space. So I know for me, when I was coming up, we didn't have a car often. And so when I was looking for where to take tests, it had to be on the bus line. That was big for me. And so when I think about like my students, I want them to be cognizant that it's about picking the test, but it's also about navigating the whole journey to get to the test and get the test taken. So I just want to name that part before we get too far. So we have a question from Tasia, and she wants to know, if a student is taking IB classes but isn't a full IB student, will that help with their college acceptance?
I can jump in on that, and then you guys can come with your thoughts. So that's kind of an A and B question. The A part is, it definitely, taking the IB class definitely is beneficial, especially on your transcript. That will definitely be a shot in the arm for you. Being a full IB student, that may not hurt you as much as it sounds, because what a lot of colleges look at, Tasia, is they look at your school's curriculum. Not so much, they won't really zero. Of course, they'll do a drill down on you, but they will do an even more detailed drill down on your school's curriculum. So if your school has a strong IB curriculum, guess what? You benefit from that. So take all the IB classes you can, whether you're a full IB student or not. Hope that helps.
That's good.
And I'll piggyback off that. I agree with him as far as being a full IB student or not. The rigor of an IB class definitely prepares you more for your college courses. So there's a definite benefit to it, to taking them. And I did see that someone in the chat asked, what is IB? So IB is, it's like a higher advanced, like AP IB classes. They're like higher advanced classes. And some of them you can get college credit for as well, just because of the rigor of the class. You have to take the IB test and pass the test to receive the credit. But that's what it is.
Let me add this too, Chanel. We did a breakdown on exactly what colleges take into consideration in their acceptance process. And the majority of it was, I think the majority percentage, it was like, maybe 40%, I want to say, was the student's curriculum. Then their cumulative core GPA, then their ACT score. So the school's curriculum, example with the IB curriculum and AP curriculum, that's a big deal. So you should definitely be in touch with your guidance counselors and your advanced upper level teachers, make your curriculum instructors in your building, making sure that you are taking advantage of every single thing that your district and your school is offering.
Yes, good.
Well, I learned something because I didn't know that colleges looked at the school's curriculum. I thought they just looked at you. I thought you were the most important piece of the puzzle, but I guess not. I guess there are other factors. We have a question here from Natalie. She's asking about the writing portion of the ACT and if that is a factor or not, and then whether or not handwriting can play a role in consideration of test scores.
I'm just talking and my mic is muted. So as far as the writing portion, as you all know, or may not know, so the writing portion is optional. But I'll kind of echo what Chanel was speaking about earlier, is you want to show college that, that you are capable of good writing. And then they'll look at that. And if you have to write an admissions essay, that's also something that they take a look at. And it doesn't hurt to take it, but it also doesn't hinder you to take it. But again, what Mike said, you want to do your research on what your school, the schools that you're looking at, are asking for. So if your school is asking for the writing portion, then you have to take it.
Also, Chanel, or I guess Natalie, great question, but don't be surprised if you submit every single thing to your schools of choice and one of the schools come back and request that you submit a writing sample. Don't be surprised one bit. That's not out of the norm. And basically to cut through the chase, what that school is saying is, hey, we see your transcript, we see your ACT, SAT scores, but if we're trying to help you financially, i.e. a scholarship, we need a little bit more firepower. So submit this writing sample to us. It's not to get you into school. It's to try and get you some money in your pocket once you get to campus. So kind of keep that in mind with the writing portion. That's why I emphasized in the beginning how important take those advanced writing classes while you're in high school. They'll pay off.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've kind of going down this path about the ACT and the SAT. So the next question is, given your expertise, Tiara, and then Mike, how should students go about preparing for these tests? Because sometimes they don't have access to it as a course in their schools. Maybe their parents don't know how to navigate that part, and so they're not signed up for classes outside of the school. So what are some things that they could do that you would suggest to prepare?
So the first thing I would say is take the test. Um, that way, you know what you're getting yourself into. The earlier you take it, the more time you have to improve your score. So that is the first thing I would say, because and I tell my students a lot. The first time I took the ACT test, I got a 16, and yeah, I was trying to play college ball, and that just was not gonna pass. So I knew, I knew what I had to do to get where I wanted. So first, practice, practice, practice. Your school libraries should have practice ACT tests. Those are available to you for free. So utilize that. And then look in your community. You have organizations such as the Urban League. We offer ACT prep, and then you have Mike's organization as well. So reach out to them and ask. For those of you who play sports, your coaches are great resources, and they want to see you succeed. They know more than the sport that they're teaching you, so take advantage of them for sure.
I think she said a lot. Whether we were an ACT prep provider or not, I still would say, being a former high school administrator and also being with one of the national tutoring companies, I would definitely say you cannot take enough ACT prep classes. You can't. If you or your parents are in the mindset that, okay, I'll pay $500-600 for you to take an ACT class, or I'll send you here to take an ACT class. You take the ACT test, and then we're done. You can't win like that. You have to continuously take ACT prep classes, and those ideally should start maybe your sophomore year. Even though the ACT is written on the junior level classes, those ACT prep classes should start your sophomore year. The ACT class we have going now, those kids are already programmed that, hey, you need to take the ACT class after this and prep for the December test. So you get in 2 to 3 ACT tests your sophomore year, your junior year. And if you've done your prep properly, going into your senior year, when you go home for Christmas break of your senior year, your ACT work should be done, because your applications are going to be done. So your ACT work should be done. So that's definitely something to think about. ACT prep. I'll tell you what we do. What our philosophy is: speed, then accuracy. And the first kids will look like, huh? So speed first, then accuracy. And once they get the speed component down, because ACT is a time test. Once they get that down with the test taking strategies, then we start building the content and we close the gap. And then you have a complete testing strategy in place. So prep for the ACT. Going down to the church house with Deacon Johnny is not enough. Prep for the ACT.
Yeah, just to add to it, both the ACT and the SAT have help on their websites. Some are free, some aren't. So just also visiting those websites, they have a lot of resources and tools as well.
I kind of want to share an anecdote to highlight what we're talking about with the ACT. So I didn't have a formalized class. I graduated from Lincoln many, many years ago, and we didn't have like formalized prep for the ACT in any way. So sitting in front of it, there were things about it that were familiar just because of how our teachers instructed, right? But the one thing that got me the first time I saw that test was the speed. I ran out of time on every single section. And so I thought that my worries would be over by Christmas break. because I got a score that was decent enough. But then my alma mater reached out and they were like, so you got this score, but if you get 3 more points, we'll let you come for free. So I took it again in that February of my senior year, and I got those 3 points, and I went for FISC for free. And so I think that it's important to name the difference of every single point increase. Like every single point is a matter of money. The score I had was a partial scholarship. I would have gone half free, half not. Those 3 extra points was a game changer. And so talking about the speed part, that's probably going to be one of the biggest difference makers for a lot of students, because a lot of us learn to read for pleasure. And so reading the speed that we read is a leisurely speed. It's a lot of information on that test. So being able to read quickly is vital. All right, we have another question here. So Natalie wants us to kind of go back and revisit the handwriting part. Does it matter or not?
So I've seen that, and I've been like on my phone trying to research it and see, because I don't have an immediate answer for that. But I will say to the latter part of the question, if writing is something that a school that he wants to go to, I say, oh yeah, he wants to go to is required, then yes, continue taking it. And it may be as maybe having him handwrite some things at home. You know, a lot of the paper, everything the students are doing now is virtual, so they're typing all day. So maybe, and as bad as it may sound, because I know that they're so busy, but giving them an assignment at home, hey, write me a 1-page essay about this. That way he can practice making his writing more legible. But I will have an answer for you, Natalie, when I talk to you tomorrow.
Natalie, one more thing. ACT does, of course, they're much more detailed than the state level, but ACT does the exact same thing that DESE does with EOC exams and other state assessments. They have people hired to process those, to grade those. So I've never heard of anybody being penalized because of their manuscript not being legible. But one thing to keep in mind is it's not a computer or technology grading that. It's an actual human. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
Okay, so we have a question from Miss Nelson. If it's the Miss Nelson that I think it is, she's one of my newest sorors. Hey, girl. She wants to know. She wants to know how to sign up a student for either of your ACT prep sessions. So, pub away, Tiara and Mike.
So I'm at the Urban League of Greater Kansas City. We offer ACT prep sessions in 4-week sessions. You can look at the information on our website at www.ulkc.org. And I can shoot, Chanel has the information, but I can shoot it to her again so that she can send it out to everyone. But thank you. That's where we are.
We are www.tptleaders.com. We are actually wrapping up our current ACT class, which meets every Sunday and Wednesday in Lee Summit. We're actually wrapping that up now. That class is geared for the October 24th testing. However, we are starting a new ACT class starting November 1, and that ACT class will target the December test. So we always start 6 weeks out, and again, the testing dates for that class, the ACT prep days for that class will be Sunday and Wednesday as well. So feel free to visit our website, or my email is Mike Graham, Graham, at tptleaders.com, and I can connect you with our coordinator, and she will handle all that.
Quick follow-up question. We've spent quite a bit of time talking about testing, but there are those instances where the score is just not what you would like or what you necessarily need. So, is it possible that someone's GPA could help them get into college in the event that their test score doesn't meet what they need?
Go ahead.
I'll try to. Yeah, I will say yes, and it depends on the school and your field of study and other factors. But yeah, definitely they can help you if your test score is not, where you'd like it to be.
And I'll add to that, the big elephant in the room that none of us have talked about yet is schools going test optional. And so in the time of COVID, we see more schools going test optional, but I always, when I talk to students, I say, yeah, some admissions have gone test optional, but you want to think about the money too. Scholarship requirements have not changed. And now that you have more students not taking the ACT, it increases your chances of getting these scholarships. Let's just be real about it, because they're like, oh, well, I don't have to take it. Well, that's like 1,000 more people that's not taking it, and you can get that money. But your GPA, it does play a factor, kind of just backing up what Dre said. But you also want to think about the other things that you are involved in as well. So if you are in different organizations and then you're doing volunteering too, which you should be doing, and if you are in Missouri, making sure you take advantage of A+. But those are also things that students look for, that colleges look for. Like I said before, they look at you as a whole person and they want to know what you can bring to their university. How are you going to make their university better? And you just have to make sure that you get yourself into those other things too.
Your GPA definitely can help you, but just like she said, your ACT score, that ACT conversation with colleges, if you're looking at scholarship money, the conversation starts at 24. So that's a real time number. So your conversation starts at 24, and so if that GPA is strong, make sure it's strong in the core subjects, and then make sure that your school has a really strong curriculum. If you're not at Lincoln, like Chanel is an alumni from, I think they may be still number one in the state for several years. So
they are.
They're hitting it out the park over there. But if you're not from Lincoln, Lincoln's average is a point or two over the state average for ACT. But what if you're not there and your school's curriculum is not on the same level as Lincoln? If Lincoln's number one, then chances are unless you're on the Kansas side at Sumner, your school's curriculum is probably not there. So, the GPA is a given, but make sure it's with the core subjects. But you have to take advantage of that ACT because you need that scholarship money. And that conversation starts at 24.
So another question, we spent a lot of time talking about the test, and the test is vital. So, duh, of course we would spend a lot of time there. It's also an area of specialty for at least two of our panelists. But in addition to the testing, do I need to have a resume? A lot of times in these seminar classes, students are tasked with creating resumes. And is that the best thing to have, or can I get into college without doing something like that?
I don't think it hurts to have one. And just to know how to build one as a life skill. Because when you get to college, odds are, you may have a job or be looking for a job to bring in some of that extra money. And also having a resume when you're filling out scholarships, helps you out a whole bunch. If you know I've volunteered here during this time and this time, these are the classes that I've taken. I also worked here, here, and here. It definitely helps to have it as at least a template or a skeleton to help you fill out those scholarships and applications.
Sorry, go ahead. I would agree. I think it doesn't hurt. For that, the student athletes I work with, I help students create athletic scholarship or athletic resumes that you can also email out to coaches, kind of highlighting your best events, your times, your GPA, whatnot. So I don't know necessarily if it's required, but I do think that's just another touch point to a university or a coach or a program that maybe moves you from here to that top pile. So.
I think a lot of the high schools that we are in doing support services, one thing that I see as a common is a lot of especially with the junior seminar classes, these kids are doing resumes. And if you look at the college application process, and then if you look at in our ACT class, we actually have the kid register for the ACT test during class. If you look at a full ACT registration online, that thing is almost a resume right there. So, so if you don't have a resume, you'll have one by the time you're done registering for ACT.
So we have another question from Lisa. She wants to know if a student is making the necessary grades, but their GPA doesn't really show that they're performing at the caliber that they are, what could they possibly do to raise their GPA? I'll chime in. I think that one of the things, especially if you're a junior, I think one of the things you can do as a junior is you can take weighted classes. Those weighted classes are AP, IB, and those classes are going to help boost your GPA. So that's one thing. Another thing I would suggest is if your school offers some sort of credit attainment or credit retention where you can kind of go back and gloss over some of the classes you might have taken in your younger years and you didn't do so hot. And then the last thing I would say is summer school, because a lot of times students want to do other things in the summer. Working is always a thing. Hey, turn up for that. Everybody likes money. But the other part to that is that students like to chill. And just thinking about like what your aim is. If your aim is to get into a school and you know that earlier in your high school career you might not have done what you needed to do, then I would suggest summer school too as a means of increasing your GPA.
Chanel, the only thing I could think to add to that, which you hit it on point, is maybe you could go into your guidance counselor's office and say, hey, I'm interested in taking a class that could really give my GPA a boost, but also give me a boost. Can I take a class over at one of the Metro Community Colleges? And I know a lot of schools have relationships where they'll even provide transportation and they'll cover everything for you to go take a class out of the building over at Penn Valley or wherever. So that's something to explore too.
So this question was actually sent to me via email from a student. As you can tell by the question, this student is very charismatic. So they want to know if there are certain people that they might be able to talk to and introduce themselves to at a college that can maybe help them get in.
I think maybe you help yourself get in. Nobody helps you get in. You have to earn your spot wherever you go, but it does not hurt to know people for sure. I would say if you know an alumni, just pick their brain and gather information about the school. Call the school. They love talking to people. And if you make yourself familiar with someone in the school, that you never know what other rooms your name will be brought up in. So I would say find an alumni and just start asking questions, and they can introduce you to other people. But your hard work is what is going to get you into a school.
I think with HBCUs, it's more of an even playing field. But if you look at some of the other, I went to Kansas State, and if I knew a young person going to Kansas State now, I would connect them with the dean of diversity at Kansas State, and maybe I would even have a conversation with that dean and say, hey, look, this kid's trying to find their way. They're not coming from Blue Valley. They're coming from Kansas City. They need a push, and it's not nothing illegal that would take place, any favoritism or anything like that. But they have a dean of diversity on campus for a reason, and that's to help diversity students of diversity.
I think that's huge for students to hear you say as well, because in having conversations about building relationships and networking, there's this like self-made mentality that can sometimes dominate the current pop culture. Like I did it on my own and I didn't need no help. And the crazy part about that to me is like we don't all exist on our own planets. So at some point we rely on relationship with other people. And so for young people to be really careful not to burn bridges or create offenses that could maybe hinder them from getting to places that they want to go in the future. And all of us were young before, so you don't always have the foresight to know who you could need or who you might need to lean on at some point. So it happens, and those life lessons do occur. But I do think it's important to name too, like be careful what kind of toes you step on, because you never know like who has some sort of leverage that can help you get to where you need to be. Lisa has another question. She wants to know about class rank and what role that plays in college admission.
I'll go first. Well, they ask on the application for your class rank, and they also see that on your transcript. So it definitely plays a role. Again, I want to keep coming back to your homeschool curriculum. That if it does play a role, it's going to help you if your school's curriculum is strong. It's considered strong. It will definitely help you. But when you start looking at class rank and community involvement, community volunteering, when you start looking at a lot of things like that, then those are kind of additives that you're putting in because maybe our GPA wasn't where it needed to be in the core classes. Maybe our standardized tests on score on ACT or SAT wasn't where it needed to be. So, yeah, it does play a part because they ask for it and they do consider it, but it's not a major part.
What he said.
Okay, so we're nearing the end of our time. I think we've had a very rich and fruitful conversation, but I do want to close out with this question. In addition to the resume and the test and maybe reaching out, what would be like something else to help a student get into their dream school? Because we always, I teach AVID for the 11th graders in our school. And I tell them all the time that you should have 3 schools. You should have your reach, your ideal, and then just show, if all else fails, I know I can go here. So what tips would you give students, or what would you say they need to make sure that they do in order to get into their dream school?
Do your research. I think that we know like the big schools, right? We know the Mizzous and the KUs and the K States and the Alabamas and things like that. But do your research on other schools, if that makes sense. You never know what someone else, what another school has to offer you, especially when it comes to scholarships and money wise and experiences. I myself, I also went to a PWI, but given at the time, if I would have done a research, I would have left Missouri, right? So don't limit yourself in those three, and make sure that you do your research.
Yeah, I think definitely you need to do your research and what Chanel said. I would even add to that I wouldn't have one just one. I would have two or three schools on in each category for my reach and my kind of default. I would have two or three schools, and I would know what each school's specialty is. I went to K State for teaching for College of Education, and I had no idea that K State was an engineering school until I got there and saw all the engineers going to class at 2 a.m. While I was going to a fraternity party. But so do your research. Know what each school's strengths are and what they produce and what they're looking for. That makes a big deal. And also know what you want. And don't just, if it's a reach, don't really call it a reach. Call it a focus that, hey, I have to give a whole year of focus. We did ACT at Ruskin last year, and we had a young lady that wanted to go to Stanford, and she needed a 34 on ACT. And she said, I'll never get it. I said, yeah, you're going to get it. And so she had already had her default school just in case she didn't get it. And she got a 34 on ACT last spring, and she's a Stanford student right now. So don't give up. Make your list, stick to your list, reach out to resources. Kids at Southeast don't have an excuse because Chanel will wear her orange King shirt and go to work for those kids. So you guys don't have an excuse.
Well, you guys pretty much said it all. The only other thing I would add, Mike, you kind of jogged this for me, is if at all possible, visit campuses, because that helps you get an idea of what amenities you might think are necessary for you to be successful. It also helps you get a feel. I know that when I graduated from Lincoln, a lot of the people that left our school went to Mizzou, and that is a massive campus. It's huge. And so when they got down there, they realized that certain things might have come in handy, i.e. a bike. Like, that's how far some of their classes were. And for me, I went to a very small school in a city, and that was important to me. I didn't want to be in a town. I wanted to be in a city. I'm a city girl. But I didn't want a big school either, because I like and need one-on-one attention when it comes to difficult concepts, because my granny used to teach me, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. And so I'm coming to office hours if I don't get it, and I need you to be available. And so I think that students actually setting foot on some of the campuses might change. Sometimes it changes your whole perception. Like, I thought I wanted to go to Florida State. It was too big. No, I'm good. It's too many people. I don't want to go there. So I think that's a huge miss sometimes, that when we're on these family vacations, even if it's a school you've never even thought of, if you're out of Kansas City and you're in another place, go visit college campuses. They really help you get a feel for what you might be looking for when it's time for you to go.
That's a big deal.
And
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I will add one more thing to it, and I kind of touched on it before. Ask around for someone who went to the university that you are looking to go to. You can, and it's good to talk to the school as well, because they'll give you the detailed, accurate information. But if you want a candid information about what it's like to be a person of color on this campus, you need to talk to a person of color who was on that campus. If it's like a PWI or HSI, so make sure that you are asking. Nobody's going to advocate better for you than yourself and your actions. So make sure you do that.
That's a big deal what you said, Chanel.
not really sure what happened there. Maybe his computer. I'm gonna
maybe.
go.
Maybe he was grabbing a charger.
Yeah, maybe so. But Tiara, I really want to thank you for joining us today. And as a reminder to those who are still with us, that she is at the Urban League of Greater Kansas City. That website is in the chat. I'll pop it up once more before we go. ulkc.org, where you can get information about college readiness that you might need in order for you to be successful. She would be the person for you to reach out to. In addition to that, I have a younger cousin who took the courses with Urban League in order to get the score she needed to go to her HBCU of choice. Shout out to Logan and here Stowe. Hey boo. So with that, I can say with certainty that the services you provide are effective, and anybody who's interested needs to go ahead and hit up the website and make those arrangements.
And it's all virtual.
There we go. All right. So thank you for joining us, Tiara. As we close out, I want to invite everybody to join us next week, same time, same place. We will actually be talking about maximizing our college applications so that we are able to apply to more colleges in one sitting and achieve our goal of getting into the dream school of our choice. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a good one.